Good morning, everyone. Well, just last night I was talking to mentorship group number two, and we were all talking about how the last couple of weeks of price action have been rather shitty. You know, not necessarily red for a lot of us, but not nearly as good. Over the last couple of weeks, or I should back up and say about 3 and 4 weeks ago, the mornings, my trading mornings are just 20, 30 minutes long, make a bunch of money, and then leave. But the last 2 weeks, I've had to trade for the full hour. Every single day, except like one or two, had red trades. And most days were a little green or a little red, which is not very good. But today was very nice and a huge turnaround of events, and I'm going to review it. And then after I review, we'll talk about this week's schedule because I'm not sure what I want to do yet. It depends what your guys' priorities are. So we will talk about that after this recording. But yeah, so pretty much just straight up this morning for the entire first 45 minutes ish. There's not much to review. The only thing to review is kind of my pre market analysis because I was bullish out of the gate. And when I sent out my pre market analysis, I just said I'm leaning bullish for the nearest pivots. And you can kind of see why. On the 15-minute time frame, we have a lot of pivots overhead. Now, I didn't think it was going to explode like it did this morning, to be honest. But we have a decent amount of, solid pivots that you can identify on the 15-minute overhead. I'll just mark some of these out. I'll mark this one, this one. We'll just mark all of them. But if you look at the 15-minute candles, what do you notice? Well, you notice a couple major things. Obviously, there's demand here, which isn't a big deal at all because it's still, could be bearish consolidation overall. But the first thing you notice are lower lows with buying wicks on both ES and NQ. You notice that NQ is a little bit stronger and validated more of that red candle. And it actually is a bullish piercing line in which you have a big red candle and then the green candle opens lower than the low. The green candle opens lower than the close of the red candle and closes over the midpoint of that red candle's body. So we have a lot of pivots overhead. We have lower lows with buying wicks, and we have a bullish piercing line on the 15-minute. I am leaning bullish. Now I'm not super bullish or anything because as you guys know, when the market opens, things magically change. So there's that. But the market opened and just blew through that analysis right away. Didn't even really get a chance to really do anything. But this is my next pivot here. And really, I'm just trying to get, I need an excuse to get in, right? Well, this candle happened and I filled on this candle. I actually filled early in this candle. I filled right here before the green body formed. And essentially the same thing happened. This green candle opened lower than the close of the red candle. We started out red, but put in a huge buying wick, making lower lows and buying wicks, and kind of putting in starting bullish consolidation. So I actually filled my SPX calls there at 2.6. 2 point, what did I fill at? Hang on. Let me check my thinkorswim because I completely forgot. Yeah, it was 2.6. So I filled right here. Immediately it was at like 2.9, which was nice. Bad for you guys, but the next candle did open red. It did actually drop to like 2.5. So all of you guys were able to fill on this trade. And there wasn't much strength analysis involved in this because, I bought early into the candle, but just out of luck, ES did end up flipping strong. And we did get through the pivot. Now, I still decided to hold a little bit for NQ new high of day, and it did get new high of day. And this is where I trimmed. But we got a lot of pivots overhead on NQ. And they're all fairly major. They all look solid. But I did trim here as NQ got to this pivot. It looked like ES flipped weaker, unfortunately. But now I don't have a major pivot until all the way up here, these blue lines. So as I see it continue up, I end up actually adding back to my position that I trimmed. It was kind of on the way. I added a bunch right here because we put in a perfect double top on ES and then ended up selling when it broke over. So very nice. That was the first trade. So I got less than an average of 100% gains because I added on the way up, re-added. But the alert did, enter 2.6. By the time it hit the PT, it was 5.4 for 108% gains. And we did continue through that. So it was very nice. And unfortunately, I did not hold for this huge explosion here. So the calls continue going. They probably hit like 200% or something. But I got 100, I got 5.4 is what I got. But NQ blew right through all of these pivots here, and we're still kind of going. But, now because we're so high up and I don't really have any pivots close, well, I didn't when I sold, but now I do. I have this next one, 59.48. I can't just get in. I need bullish consolidation and ideally some kind of strength divergence. And that's what I got. This candle right here, I did end up re-entering SPX calls here. You can see the strength divergence. ES flipped a lot stronger than NQ compared to these green candles. It also made lower lows with buying wicks. But I only entered half size because this bullish consolidation is fairly new. We are fairly overbought and NQ is in supply. So I'm hoping for the opportunity to average down. Now I entered those calls at 3.3 and they did drop to like 2.8, but I couldn't average down because it didn't make a lower low. And that's one of my big rules. I will not average down unless we make a lower low, which would be like right here. So the calls were super, super, super choppy. I mean, right here, the calls were less than what I bought them at. They were at 3.2. But I couldn't average down, unfortunately. And it did end up getting through my PT, unfortunately. And next PT was NQ pivot. And we did get to NQ pivot. I sold the last when this happened. And the reason I say unfortunately is because I only made half as much money as I should have. But that's just the way it goes sometimes. It was the right call to go half size. The contracts were chopping a ton. And I didn't get lower lows, which is just unlucky. But with how much those contracts are chopping and supply, and with us being oversold, 100% that's a trade you want to go half size in. And I didn't really get the opportunity to average up because, by the time I was ready, it only took one candle to get from my entry point to the price target. But that was good though. I mean, I got 51% gains, and I believe it didn't continue after. I thought it was going to continue, but I pretty much sold the top. I sold it right here. Pretty much right as NQ crossed this level. That's where ES was at. I sold. So I pretty much sold the top, which was nice. But yeah, SPX calls just 2 trades today, 108% gains and then 51% gains. And unfortunately, that 51% gains was a lighter win than what I would have liked it to be. But still a super easy morning. There's no reason to be red on a morning like this unless you have bad psychology, right? It's fine to not be green and just be break even because you didn't trade because you didn't get triggered into your edge. My new morning strategy that I'm developing, I didn't get triggered into that futures wise. But the only way you're red is stepping in front of and against this trend, and you wouldn't expect a picket fence to stop a freight train, so you doing that is likely out of poor psychology. And if you did do that, make sure to do a review of that and a psychological reset, because that is not something you ever want to step in front of. I mean, ideally, it should be every day trader's dream to get this kind of price action. More so, especially when you throw in some legs of consolidation in there, which are always great entry points. Lots of opportunity this morning. So yeah, starting this week off on a great note. Very happy with it. Very easy. And that's pretty much it. Just straight up. And I just caught, I'd say I probably caught half of this wrong, maybe a little more. But does anyone have any questions regarding those trades? Because if not, that's pretty much it for the review. The market's just, I don't even know why it went up. I know that the credit rating got downgraded. That is a freaking massive bull flag. It's not a bull flag, it's a pennant, but that is massive bullish consolidation. However, I believe this NQ trend line is in fact perfect, so I'm actually bearish for this trend line to break. No, it's not perfect. Never mind. This might be. So this is massive. Yeah, no, that's very bullish. That is a perfect trend line there on NQ. So huge bullish consolidation. And technically, the first leg was roughly 1 hour exactly 1 hour, 6:18 to 7:18. This consolidation is from 7:18 Oh, look, it's 810. That is perfectly proportional. So, yeah, that is pretty bullish, at least for this pivot up here. But I will not be trading it because my strategy is over. I will probably be trading my afternoon strategy, but I'm going to talk to you guys about this week's schedule, the free indicator that's almost done with development, and all those things here right after I finish the recording. But yeah, great morning. Fantastic. Hopefully, we get 4 more mornings like that this week. But all right, doesn't look like there's any questions, so I'm going to end this recording. I'll let you guys know when it's posted, and we'll talk about the schedule right after.